Hey there, it's Nick Terzo, and this is the Radical Podcast. No, we won't be overthrowing any governments, but we will be learning from radical creatives who rule the world. I'm Nick Terzo, and this is The Radical. We have a great show this week. Joining me on The Radical are the legendary Danny Kortchmar and Leland Sklar of the super band, The Immediate Family. The band's new EP just recently debuted at number 6 on the Billboard chart. While you still may not be familiar with this band, you will connect the dots on the many projects Danny and Leland have contributed to. These gentlemen have been frequent collaborators both on stage and in the studio with artists such as Jackson Browne, James Taylor, Don Henley, Linda Ronstadt, Stevie Nicks, Keith Richards, Graham Nash, Neil Young, David Crosby, amongst many others. As musicians, songwriters, and producers, they have contributed on many great albums and dozens of chart-topping singles. This is a great one, folks, as both these guys have seen it all in rock and roll. Coming up, my chat with Danny Kortchmar and Leland Sklar. Hello, Leland. Hello, Danny. Welcome to the show.
Oh, man. It is a pleasure to be here, Nick.
Yeah, we're very happy to be here.
Well, not as happy as I am. This is the highlight of my month, I think, where there's very few of that going on right now. How are your years going? I mean, how has this affected? I mean, with the Immediate Family, I assume you had touring plans to support the
we did.
record.
We did, but just like everybody else, everything got canceled or put off, just like everybody,
Yeah.
It's surreal. It's surreal.
Yeah. I mean, do you guys know how much touring you had ahead? I mean, did you have stuff booked that actually had to be kind of checked out?
There was stuff that was solid, and then there was stuff that was building. And then our agent was in the process of putting a bunch of stuff together. Some of it had been booked, and then some of it was going to be added to what we already had. And then it all went away.
Yeah. A lot of things are just in kind of slow-mo. I mean, we're moving forward. Instead of releasing the album that we were going to release, we're releasing EPs until such time as we can actually release the album. And Denny Tedesco, who did the Wrecking Crew movie, is doing a documentary film about us. It's still moving forward, but it just slowed down because of, proximity of interviews and things like that. The most important thing right now is staying safe. When you see these numbers soaring daily and the amount of people dying, man, I just want us all to be here when the light comes at the end of the tunnel and it's not just a fucking train coming at us.
Right. Oh, that makes perfect sense. And so the EP we're talking about came out in October. Is it Slippin' and Slidin'? That's the EP. And it actually debuted at number 6 on the Billboard Blues chart. Is that right?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Congratulations.
We didn't know we were a blues band.
I was going to say congratulations. I thought you guys were being a rock band in this, but congratulations. So.
Well, any good rock and roll always has blues in it. It's got tons of blues in it because that's where it all started. So we'll take it.
Yeah.
Fine.
So how many songs have you written like in total then, since you're sending them out like in segments?
Oh man, how many? We have a lot of stuff recorded. We have an album that's going to come out next year, a full album. And we've recorded, we got 17 tracks finished and ready to go. But we'll have to hold back on it until such time as it's deemed to be an appropriate time to release this stuff and when it's going to have the most impact.
Right. And I mean, is all that songwriting that was all done internally just amongst you guys?
That's right.
Yeah. Nice. Congratulations.
All original stuff done by us. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's primarily Cooch and Waddy and Postel are the main writers in the group. I haven't really contributed on that level because I'm pathetic, but I'm happy to grovel at brilliant feet, and I'm lucky to be in a band with them.
Right. And have you guys, I mean, literally, like, have you guys been aware of each other or friends for like 5 decades?
Yeah.
Yes.
Damn.
We certainly have.
Damn.
We started together. Russ and Lee and I started together in like 1970. Is that right, Lee?
Yeah.
1970. And we started playing together then with James Taylor and Carole King and other people. And then Wad came on the set about 5-6 years later. We met him and he fit right in. We love him. And Postella's the kid. He's the youngest guy in the band. We've only known him about 10, 12 years. So, yes,
That's amazing.
we go back, way back.
Well, the thing that's remarkable too is in 5 decades, there's never been a harsh word passed between any of us. This has been a band of friendship and brotherhood the entire time. When you hear about these groups that travel separately, they can't stand each other, they're always fighting. That has never been part of our equation. This is really the immediate family name, which Cooch penned, is the most perfect name actually this band could have had.
Right. The only other,
that's what we are.
Yeah. The only alternative I had for you guys was like Ben Button, like on Benjamin Button, because it took you guys, most kids start the band when they're teenagers. You guys decided to do it a few decades later. So.
Yeah.
We're incredibly lucky to be able to, at this point, be in a rock and roll band together after all the time we spent backing people up, and we love what we did. We love the people that we played with. We have nothing but respect and admiration and affection for everyone we played with. But we also love creating our own stuff and our own material. And it's been a real blessing to be able to do it.
Yeah, that's so fantastic.
And everybody's still at the top of their game. That's the whole thing. I mean, age is really defied in this thing, because when we get together, we may as well be 18 years old the way we play, except we play with more maturity.
Right. That's the Benjamin Button of it. I'm telling you guys, it's an
really
amazing combination. So, so how much like outside stuff, I mean, have you guys still continue to do as far as sessions, or like Dan, I know you produce a bit, still doing a bunch of that? I mean, not in the current environment.
If you're asking me, I stopped producing and a while ago. And as far as sessions, I haven't really been doing sessions since the 80s, when I was kicked upstairs and became a producer by Don Henley. Leland, on the other hand, is one of the most in-demand musicians in the world, and is constantly adding stuff and playing on sessions. So you ought to talk to him about it.
Yeah. This year was a full year between the band and other projects. And it went away like a fart in a hurricane. It was done when the minute this hit. We were fortunate with the band that in February we did a thing called the Rock Legends Cruise, and it was like Roger Daltrey and Nancy Wilson and Mark Farner and all these people on it, and they booked the immediate family on the tour. So it was our last opportunity to really do live gig. And then it's right after that tour, right after that cruise, is when everything locked down. So I've been spending this whole year doing things I never thought I would ever do. I created a YouTube channel, and that's really been successful, and a clubhouse. I finished a book that I never thought I would get to, a photo book. I have just lots of pride, and it's the first time I've ever recorded at home. I have SSL sent me an interface, and I plugged into GarageBand, and I just finished doing a track for a guy in Ireland this morning. And so, just trying to stay viable. But if I could blink right now and we were at the airport getting on a plane to hit the road, I would be so happy, because this is my dream. I've spent 50 years, like the rest of us, getting to this point, and it was really shocking that suddenly all these doors were just boom opening up, and all of a sudden everything slammed shut. But we have patience, we're gonna see this through. And like Cooch, every time I talk to him, he's writing more material. Maybe we'll get in and cut more songs, just so we have lots and lots of stuff, because it's what we do.
Yeah, that's right.
Leland, I watched the YouTube channel, which is fascinating, and what a treat for people to be able to go there and watch you put those lines down that we've got etched in our brains for decades. And that's a really wonderful undertaking you're doing there. And one other question, is it really true that you've played on 2,600 albums?
Somewhere, I never counted that. I've had some, during the years, I had people that do like forensics, checking, and said, well, it's somewhere in the, I would say if I said 2,000, that would be very, very safe to say, because I've got all my old date books. But I never think about the past. I mean, I think about right now and tomorrow. The past is for people that want to talk about that. But for me, man, I'm still plowing forward with, and with my brothers. It's magic.
None of us live in the past.
No, that's clear.
We're mostly interested in the present and in the future.
Right. And
although we're all very proud of what we've done. But
yeah.
Right. And do you guys think that's like the underlying theme of like how to continue being creative and contributing like throughout life? I mean, you just got to have this go forward mentality. What do you attribute your creativity to over this many decades?
Well, for me, it's, for one thing, the inability to do anything else would be one thing. And the other would be, it's just love. It's something as soon as I started playing the guitar when I was 11 or 12 years old, it's like, that's it. I had no plan B. I wasn't going to go backward. I was just going to play guitar and play rock and roll, and that was it. And I had no other goal or desire in my life. And I still feel the same way.
And I mean, yeah, go ahead, Leland.
No, that's same for me. I think it's this quest to always be creating and moving forward, where there's so many people that talk about what they did 30 years ago, and that's great. I love what everybody did 30 years ago. But for a lot of people, that's kind of where it stopped, and they're still living that, where we're just chomping at the bit to move forward at this point. And I think that's what keeps the juices flowing.
That's amazing. Danny, do you and we're talking about going forward here, but just on a legacy front, how do you like to have yourself characterized? I mean, you're a songwriter, a producer. What really to you are you most kind of locked into as an identity of sorts?
I don't know. Music guy.
Yeah.
Would be all right. I don't know what to say about that. To me, it's all connected.
Yes.
Playing the guitar, writing songs, producing, singing, performing. It's all the same thing, basically. And you got to give your all in all those areas. But it's a joy. It's a joy to do it. That's all I can say about it. It's an absolute pleasure. And it's a blessing for all of us to be able to do what we love and get paid for it.
Did you guys both grow up with like music in the household? I mean, how did you guys become players, or how did you find the passion for this early?
You're assuming we grew up.
That's there is that.
I grew up in a very eclectic household musically. My mom played a little bit of piano. My dad played just enough sax to make me cry in grief. And finally he got rid of that. But their record collection was very, very extensive. And so they exposed me to a lot of music. In fact, the first concert they ever took me to was the George Shearing Quintet with the Hi-Lo's. And I think I was 11 years old when they took me. And we used to go to Gershwin night at the Hollywood Bowl every summer and stuff like that. So it was kind of in my DNA.
Are you guys both just native Southern Californians then, or no?
No.
Okay.
Leland's from Milwaukee originally, and I'm from New York City.
There you go. I can hear it in your voice still, Danny.
Ah, good.
It's still there.
It never goes away.
Still there. And so you guys on this record, though, prior to COVID, I mean, you did get some dates in live together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we played twice now. We've done the Iridium. We've done a week at the Iridium in New York. We were just getting really rolling with this. The focus really was on the recording and getting the records done and those obligations, which we really enjoy. It's not an obligation. But then we were lining up gigs and every gig the band got stronger and stronger. And that's what we're anxious to do, is really get a run going where we can get out for a month or two and really go out every night. And this will become even a more ferocious animal than it is now, I think, with that kind of consistency.
And you guys still, I mean, I can hear it. I mean, you still have that road thing in you that it's just natural to you guys that's where you belong. So,
yeah.
We spend a lot of time on the road for sure. So, yeah, and it never goes away.
It's incredible. Yeah. And on the EP, you have a couple of songs that each of you have maybe co-written in some cases that you've covered also, or not?
Well, on the EP, yeah, there's Werewolves of London that Waddy wrote with Warren Zevon, of course. And there's a tune of mine, New York Minute, that I wrote with Don Henley. So, yeah, there's always collaborations. I've collaborated with a lot of different people, and I've been very lucky to have had my music performed and recorded by Henley and James and Jackson. It's just great. They're really amazing thing.
And are you guys keeping all the vocals on, the future tracks and all that just between yourselves inside the band, or are there going to be duet things, or all intact?
No. It's all us. It's all us.
That's awesome.
Any of the artists want to join us can join us in the audience and dig our show. They're all welcome to come, but we're the band.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot.
And it's fun. We played in LA. We played in LA, and Jackson was in the audience. Just loving it. So they're fans of us, just like we're fans of them. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
That's great. So let me ask you a kind of a mundane question, just because I think some people listening are going to find this interesting. How many instruments do each of you own? And what type of instruments? Like, are they things you've owned for 50 years, 40 years?
Go ahead, Lee.
I don't know. Yeah, I just unloaded a mountain of gear with this company, Techno Empire, and Reverb Nation. I think they're whoever they work with, because I had a warehouse full of stuff over the years, and I suddenly went there and opened up cases I hadn't looked in 30 years, and found just lots of melted foam rubber and old stuff. But I'd say I probably have a dozen basses, and amp-wise, I've got exactly what I need for the rest of my life sitting in my garage. My needs are really small. I'm not a gearhead. I've got my very first good bass, which is a 62 jazz bass, Fender jazz bass, which I carved up in the 60s. And it's what I used on all of the early Section and James. It's what I used on Billy Cobham's Spectrum. And then I've got my Frankenstein bass here. It's actually just sitting right next to me. This is my main love here. Like 300 autographs on it. But for the most part, I'm really not a gearhead. I've got a couple of basses I bought at flea markets for $90 that I love playing. So I've got an acoustic bass and a Hofner and a piccolo bass and things like that, just to cover territory, but not a big collector, not like John Entwistle, who probably had like 600 basses.
Dang, that's crazy. Danny, do you have guitars that mean the world to you? I'm sure.
Oh, sure I do. Yeah, I have guitars I absolutely love. I'm not a big collector either. I'm like Leland. I have maybe 15 guitars, and of those I play 2 or 3 regularly. That are my main go-to axis. And of course, with the immediate family, I like guitar effects, but I don't use them with the immediate family because I got to concentrate on singing the songs, playing the parts right, and the audience. And I don't have time to be tapping away with my foot. Besides, I'll fall over if I start that. If I'll fall right on Leland,
Wasn't that when we were at the Iridium and
that's right. That's what Keith said.
Yeah, well, it's Keith
Richards came. Yeah, Keith came to see us at the Iridium when we played there. He's a lovely fellow, of course, and a good friend of ours. And that's what he said about pedals. He said, I can't use them. I can't be tipping around, stomping on these pedals. I'll fall over. And I knew exactly what he meant. I lose my balance. I'll fall right over.
Yeah, they may be for different reasons for each of you, but I understand that. So, and that's why the 3 guitar thing must work for you, since you have to spend so much time on the vocals in this band. Right. Yeah.
And the thing that's really great is having Steve and Cooch and Waddy. They're so different stylistically, yet the same. So it's not like there's this kind of battle going on. Each guy has this unique spot. So having 3 guitars in this circumstance is really great. Where I remember doing a Christmas show with these DJs, Mark and Brian, here in Los Angeles. And Jason Bonham was going to play drums. And so we decided to do Black Dog. And Mark Bonilla was the MD playing guitar. Lukather came and played guitar, and Slash played guitar. And they all 3. And when it was all over, I looked at Bonilla and I said, "This is why Zeppelin had 1 guitar player." It was like this, it was like a pose off on a bodybuilder contest. And I thought, man, that's the beauty of this. I look across the stage, and all 3 guys listen to each other and find spots. So it's really a rich tapestry of guitar rather than this kind of cacophony which could happen under these circumstances. And Russ and I just sit in the back and laugh. I'm glad it's you guys, not me up there.
Amazing. And look, you've each played with incredible people. Danny, you've produced incredible artists. I'm just curious if you might each share like something you've learned from someone that you were kind of around for a period of time, one of the great artists you've worked with, and maybe a
I'd say
lesson that
don't wait.
stayed.
I'd start off by saying, don't wait too long to order the food. Don't wait too long to order dinner because, then you're starving to death and you eat everything. So, order food before you get too hungry. I'd say that'd be
That's pretty good. I can live with that.
I think Leland would agree with me about that.
Oh, actually, I always like people would say, what makes a good producer? And I would say, they know when the band's hungry and they order food and put their plastic down. I really don't need much more than that if they fired the right band.
Right. But don't order it too late, order it, so it gets there right at the time we're hungry. That's very important, Yeah. I'd say maybe the most important thing.
Yeah.
Making records. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like when you go on the road, and you think about all the cities you've played and all the places you've been. And I guarantee you, if guys start talking about, the first thing they're going to talk about is this great restaurant. They don't remember the gig. You don't remember the hall till you get there and you pull up and go, oh yeah, I remember this. But man, you kind of go, God, St. Elmo's in Indianapolis, man, they had it was the most unbelievable steakhouse, and things like that. Or when we were in Florida at the crab joint.
Yeah, Joe Stone crabs. You kidding? That's what we look forward to. That's what we remember. I don't remember anything about Miami except Jones.
Oh man! So, and on this documentary you guys have with Denny Tedesco, that's sometime next year. I mean, how far along are you? I mean, how is it? How is he putting it together? I don't know what you would say, the style of how he's doing it.
It's hard to say because we really haven't seen any of it. But they're deep into it. They're probably 2/3 of the way into this documentary because they were at that point they were doing lots of interviews. They talked to James Taylor and Jackson Browne and Carole King and Linda Ronstadt and Phil Collins and Billy Bob Thornton. I mean, there's like tons of people that have been brought into this who we've been involved with. And then they were in New York filming us when we were at the Iridium and we walked around the streets. But the thing that was interesting to me as I was talking to Danny one day about this, because the Wrecking Crew movie is a fabulous documentary of an amazing bunch of musicians. And his father was one of the greatest guitar players that's ever graced the studio or this world. But Denny said, look at the Wrecking Crew pretty much was about a 12-year run of really working all the time. And he said they never left the studio. They just did what they did day and night. They were in there like a machine, just cranking out all these people's albums. Now, Hal would go on the road. Blaine would maybe go to Vegas with Sinatra, and he would even get marquee booking in front of the hotels. But he said, you guys are completely different. He says, you've been together 50 years. You wrote songs for the artists. You produced artists. You toured with the artists. So he said, it's not like we're making Wrecking Crew 2. This is a completely other animal. And I really had the real pleasure when Wrecking Crew came out. I worked with all those guys. I was kind of a transitional player with those guys. So Denny invited me to a lot of the screenings. And I would do Q&As with the guys and talk about what it was like to play with Hal and Nectel and Rubini and all these guys. And then they sort of faded and our group moved forward as the music scene changed into the singer-songwriter movement. But the project's coming along. It's just everything's slowed down. The things where they have to do one-on-one interviews with people, a lot of people are still uncomfortable with having even a couple of film crew people come to them or them going. So it's moving, but it's moving at whatever the pace or the conditions allow. And we still need to do a band roundtable and tell stories. And that's going to be really, I think, the most fun is because the way we normally, when we're talking to each other, feed each other. And each guy says something that reminds somebody else of something. And then it takes on a life of its own. I think that's going to be a real fun thing when we hunker down and do that.
Cool. While we're on that subject then.
Yeah.
Come on, you guys. You got to give me at least a touring or a studio story. Now we've talked about food. Come on, give me a give me a story. Come on.
Bradley, tell him a story.
Give me a
You
story.
go ahead, Cooch,
Come
'cause
on,
I'm-
Danny.
There's so many of them, and geez, nothing pops into mind. Nothing in terms of, what I would say if I was on the Tonight Show pops into mind immediately. But it just, oh boy, there's so many incredible moments, that have happened.
Yeah.
Let me see. Okay. There's one. There's one. I was in the studio with Henley. We were producing his second album, and he the phone rings and it's Nicholson, Jack Nicholson. He says, "I'm coming over." And suddenly Jack shows up, and we had who's that great guitar player from Texas? The kid, what's his name? I can't remember his name now. I can't remember anything. Anyway, there's Jack, and he shows up, and we're doing these overdubs. Then Henley has to leave. One of his many girlfriends calls him up, and there's some tragedy going. So he says, "I gotta go," and he splits. So it's me, this guitar player, and Jack sitting there. Jack turns to me and says, "Cooch, I need $2 million." And I'll never forget that. I go, "Jack needs $2 million." Well, and I checked my wallet. I didn't have quite that much on me at the time. So. But I think he's made it. I think he's actually earned that by now.
That's fantastic.
That's great. That's great. Jeez. I mean, there's so many stories for me. It's like I remember going to Cherokee Studios, and it was myself and Greg Matheson on keyboards and Carlos Vega. And I can't remember who was playing guitar now, but we were doing a song that Paul Jabara and Paul from Letterman, Schaefer wrote this song, and Paul Jabara was going to be the artist, and we cut the song. And we all kind of sat there and went, "Really?" And it just didn't work out. So they went and got 2 Tons of Fun, named them the Weather Girls, and that was It's Raining Men.
How funny.
But there's with all of us, when you're looking at a half a century of experiences in the studio, there are moments. There's some moments where you just are hysterical when you're talking amongst ourselves, but it's not the stuff you're going to be sharing. But it's magic. Every time you walk in the studio, there's going to be some kind of amazing thing. You're going to bump into somebody. I remember working on a project at A&M Studios, or it was Henson at this point. And I walked out of my session. I did a noon to 6 session. Then I come walking into the hallway, and Herbie Hancock's standing there, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "We just finished our session." He goes, "You want to work?" And I just rolled all my gear out of Studio A into Studio B and ended up doing a project with Herbie Hancock. So, these things, it's just an amazing community.
Yeah, I'd have to sorry to interrupt you, Lee. I'd have to say that A&M, and I can't call it Henson.
I know.
Right.
I know.
It's A&M Studios was Harvard University back in the 80s. Everyone knew everyone. You couldn't throw a rock without hitting some genius.
Yeah.
Every studio was filled with people we knew, people doing great stuff. I was there once. Tom Petty was there. Bruce was there, and you too, and me and Henley at the same time. All of them just walking around the hallway, saying hello to each other. So that kind of stuff. And of course, it rubs off. Everybody, all the ideas get thrown around and exchanged. Like Leland said, he goes from one studio to another. And that kind of stuff was happening pretty much every day. What an incredible experience to be at A&M in the 80s. It's absolutely brilliant.
I agree. And I mean, you both must feel that, the specialness of that and what that meant is a collaborative thing and juices flowing. And I mean, today, this home recording stuff, man, just kind of a bummer, man.
It's not the same. Not the same. One of the things that bothers me the most is that bands don't have a band sound. There's groups that come on. It's just one guy who plays everything. Then he goes on the road and hires some guys. But that's not a band sound. A band sound is where the drummer can't be replaced, the bass player can't be. You can't just interchange parts. And we see very little of that because of the way records are being made now. There are some bands that do have that. I would even say Greta Van Fleet has a band sound. They sound like a rock and roll band. They don't sound like a bunch of guys that never saw each other before. They sound like they grew up together. That's the band sound. And we don't get that much anymore. And there's some great records being made, but like for instance, I really like War on Drugs. That guy's really good, but that's not a band. That's one guy, and it's great. It sounds really good, and I like it, but it's not the same as where you get the sound of a band. That's why I love being in this band so much, because we got that.
Yeah. And there were so many times when you're looking at projects that are like watching the Grammy Awards, and some group wins and they bring up like Song of the Year or something. And there's 12 producers that come walking up to the stage and 10 writers, and it's a song. What's all these people involved? It's like looking at a movie now, and the first 5 minutes of credits is producers.
Right.
Watch old movies and was produced by Mervyn LeRoy. Done. It's over.
Right.
It's a different world, but that's certainly the 70s through the 80s was really the golden age of this. There was when you would be at Record Plant or A&M or Capitol, any of those rooms, and you'd walk out and you'd bump into Harry Nilsson in the hallway, and people would just drop in on each other's sessions. It was like an open door. It wasn't like
all
this
the time.
Big sign saying "stay out" recording and stuff. It was a real community of players, and that just doesn't exist anymore.
Fantastic. No, you're right. It was a time. So, So before I cut you guys loose, I know you guys are busy, and I don't want to take too much of your time today.
Oh, no, it's really.
I'm just curious, is there anything great you guys are currently listening to that's really kind of knocked your socks off in a way?
Oh boy.
Other than your own music right now.
No.
I can name a couple of things. I love Fantastic Negrito. He's got 3 albums out. They're all great. I love him. He's fantastic. He is fantastic. And I also love D'Angelo, who's got a great album out now, or it came out a couple of years ago.
I haven't heard that. Yeah.
Really done. Our pal Pino Palladino is all over playing. And fantastic record. Those are the things that immediately come to mind at this point.
Leland,
other than that, I mean, listen to stuff. Other than that, I mean, listen to stuff I grew up with.
Right.
Music I grew up with.
Yeah, I tend to like when I'm home, I'm busy. I don't really sit and listen to music at home. And when I'm driving, I tend to listen to a lot to Sirius XM, the Sinatra station. Listen to a lot of music of that ilk, and I go through and find different things. But the real problem I find is I might hear something I like, and nobody's telling me who the hell it is. Right. I hear it on the radio. It's like when DJs used to say who the artist was after a song, and maybe you would write down and go check them out. Sometimes they'll do 15 songs, and then they suddenly all rattle off some of the names, and I don't remember who was what song. So the voyage of discovery is really kind of stunted on that level, along with the advent of the losing record stores, which my favorite thing was to peruse record stores and just go through bins, maybe pick up an album because I like the album art. They had no idea who was even what it was about. But those days are gone for the most part.
Yep, I agree. So you guys have a Stage It Live that you did that's going to re-air tonight when this publishes. It will re-air on November 13th when this show actually goes out. So everyone should find that. It's a remarkable show. Stage It Live.
Yeah, it's noon on the 13th Pacific time.
Okay.
When we're doing it.
Awesome. So it's the same day we publish the show. So there you go.
Oh, great.
Back to back. Well, thank you guys both. I love the music you're making with Immediate Family, and I really can't wait to see you live. I really can't.
Well, when the album comes out, I would love to come back and hang with you again and yak about that.
Come back, because I do want to address, as I said, your you becoming kind of a social media outlaw at some point. So we'll do that next time. So thank you both. Thanks, Elin. Thanks, Cooch.
Thank you, Nick.
Stay healthy.
Thanks.
Well, that's our show this week. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe even learned a little something. To follow what's going on with this podcast, you can go to theradicalpod.com. Theradicalpod.com. You'll find show notes and past episodes, and even a little swag there if you want a t-shirt or a hat. Also, I would be honored if you'd subscribe at Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Till next week.